Hey guys, welcome in to College SportsCast. I'm Brad, and we are presented by the Fanboys, associated with Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports, and we are on WSBN TV Channel 30. Check out our new Season 2 intro. Hey guys, welcome back. Brad with College SportsCast. Welcome to College SportsCast. Looks like I have John Roberts that's just joining me. So I'll get him pulled up here. Welcome, John. What's up?
What's happening? May have a small time, but I'll be here for a little bit.
Okay. He didn't know for sure if he was going to make it or not, so I sent him a link just in case. So he may not be on here for the full show, but welcome to College SportsCast. And we have John on with us for a little while this evening, so we'll kind of get started with that. You've been working today, John?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I figured. So you didn't have a chance to see any of the stuff or whatever is what I'm saying, what I was kind of getting.
No, I mean, whatever I heard in the car was probably all I got today. And I got maybe a small snippet of Lane Kiffin. That was about it.
Yeah. So it started this morning with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. And I'm going to be honest with you. Lane Kiffin still stole the show. And I told John Hammonds yesterday that it was probably going to be that way. Anytime you get Lane Kiffin in a press conference, I mean, you get some stuff every time.
Did he not look like Beach Bum today?
He did. He did. He's been hanging out at the beach this month.
He's so dark, but he had the highlights and everything, and his hair was all disheveled. It almost looked like he just woke up.
I know his hair is all and everything. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you right now, just the way he talks and the stuff, I mean, he steals the show. So, the day started out with him, of course. He did bring his star running back, Judkins, and a defensive end, Johnson, and a cornerback, Prince, that was there with him today. Like I said, anytime Lane Kiffin takes the mic at a press conference or anywhere, to be honest with you, it could be after the game, it could be anything. There's no telling what you're going to hear. And today, Kiffin went crazy on NIL and transfer portal and all that. So
look, I want to answer that. I want to answer that question, but I think I've grown up and I really want to, but they tell me I should probably just kind of let some questions go.
Start the show with some quotes from Kiffin today. Okay. So the first one is this. He says that there are unintended consequences with NIL, and it's a pay-for-play system where players follow the money and the teams with the deepest pockets get the best talent. That was his quote today. All right.
Lane Kiffin, will you please rank the boosters in the SEC?
Then his next quote is this. He's talking about the transfer portal. He says, free agency now exists, except that unlike professional sports, every college player can enter into free agency twice a year with the spring and winter transfer windows.
And then he went on. Then he went on to talk about grad transfers who could be in the. He said you could be in the spring workouts and just decide that you don't want to be here, and that since you've graduated, you can leave. And that was something when he talked about the grad transfer going into the portal. Saying they could go through spring workouts and decide right in the middle of it that they don't want to be there anymore, and that they can leave and they can go at any moment,
anytime they want to. And he went on with the transfer portal, and he said we've now got professional sports, except there's no salary cap or luxury tax, and the result is a myriad of issues for the coaches. That is Lane Kiffin's quotes today on the NIL and the transfer portal. I'm not complaining about it because we have taken advantage of free agency. He did say that. But, and there was a whole other list. There was a bunch of other stuff that he went into with this. Like you said, he went into the grad transfer stuff, but there was other things that he went into as well. And I'm not going to sit here and go through everything that he went through and that he talked about, but I thought those 2 or 3 quotes was, just about as open and honest and relevant to the game from a coach that you could possibly get.
So when he went into some of that stuff, he was talking about like the when he talked about the transfer portal and free agency and how it's not the NFL model, because he said, hey, the NFL model at least has a start and end point, and that you can kind of regulate it. He said, but this one is just, it's kind of open season, and there's two different times.
He actually went on talking about the NFL. He actually went on and said, in part of it, he said, imagine an NFL where Tom Brady can basically be a free agent and go to the highest bidder every single year. Because that's what we have in college football.
Yeah, and then
he mentioned a few other names
when he was, especially when
Tom Brady was one of them.
When he was talking with, he was kind of mentioning some things about Sark because of the fact that Texas is coming in, and that he and Sark have had a pretty close career path, seeing that they've crossed paths several different times, whether being the fact that Sark followed him at Alabama, Sark followed him at USC multiple times, whether as offensive coordinator or as head coach. So Sark's coming into the SEC, and they were talking. I think he was either talking with Sark or anything like that. But it was, why would you want to go to the NFL? Because this is the NFL. This is the best players, and he's talking about, he was comparing both being as a coach, but also the fact that the players are getting paid, that most people came to college and went and played at some of the best schools because they got their chances to get into the NFL to make money. Like their whole point was they're going to come in here for 3 years and then they're going to make money. Now they're making money in school. So this was kind of the idea. He was also talking about, and he was also talking about when they started talking about, well, how do you handle the locker room? And he said, well, it's the same way you handle it with an NFL. Like, one guy's got a contract, and somebody that they pull in, they go get another guy out of free agency who then signs for more money, and you've got to be able to handle both of the personalities in the locker room. He said it's the same thing as the NFL. He just says you just have to teach it earlier to the kids that don't understand.
And Kiffin has been
what it is
in the NFL, so
right.
he has some experience there.
Yeah, and I mean, I often said that once they started doing this, that people were asking, well, what would like a lineman do when a quarterback's got millions of dollars in deals? And I was like, well, what does a lineman do in the NFL when a quarterback has millions of dollars in a contract? I mean, you get a Jets offensive lineman, and then you get Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so what's the difference?
Yeah. Well, there's not a difference when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. Not really. But I really, honestly, I've never truly been a Lane Kiffin fan. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and act like that I have. But the last year or so, with some of his speak on these topics, I'm really impressed.
Yeah,
I'm really impressed with the way Lane Kiffin is bold and stepping up and saying stuff that is true, but most coaches are not going to, step up and do that kind of stuff. And Lane absolutely nailed it today, in my opinion. There are some major issues. The free agency, being able to do it, in the middle of spring training, in the middle of fall training, if they want to, like he was talking about with grad transfers, with 2 open windows, so you can go in and sign up for in the spring. And if you don't like your situation, you can transfer out. I mean, there's just a lot of issues that's going on in college football, and it was good to see a coach with the stature of Lane Kiffin step up and say something about it. I thought.
Yep.
So that's how it all started today with the SEC Media Days. He did lay a pretty good joke on Paul Feinbaum as well. So, they were basically, he said, basically Paul Feinbaum and everybody, is basically stating that, the end of Saban is near, and, that they're going to falter, and they're not quite as good as what they used to be and stuff. And he went on and he said, yeah, thanks, Paul Feinbaum, for giving him the edge that he needs, so he had a little joke, with Paul Feinbaum, which I thought was a little funny as well. And, calling out Paul Feinbaum and a few other people, that are giving Saban the tools he needs to, like, re-energize. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, this is going to be, and honestly, this is the kind of year that Saban wants, when nobody is talking about them. They're all talking about how they're not really going to be all that great. They're getting back more to the old Saban era, where it's going to be ground and pound with a game manager quarterback is really what they're looking for. Because I mean, they're going to get that
up until the last 6 years or so.
Well, but they're reverting back to the stuff before that. So, and so now, I mean, they're going to look like what Georgia,
the Greg McElroy days, and
even the McCarron days were like that too. I mean, he was
the
more
AJ McCarron days,
more
of
a dynamic passer than McElroy, but still he was, quote unquote game manager. And so was, Coker. Coker was the same way. I mean, you had guys like Scarborough and you had why am I going blank on some of these guys? Trent Richardson, and you had all these different running backs that went through Bama that you could
the running backs,
workhorse. The workhorse.
Sean Alexander. I mean,
that's a little before this time here. You're going back to like 1999, 98, 2000 with Sean Alexander. I'm talking more like 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Those years. So that's really what they're kind of reverting back to that. And they'll have a stable of running backs. They'll have
Kiffin just didn't want him to wake up the sleeping giant.
Correct. That is correct. Which there's a lot of people that seem to be poking at him, and I think this is one of those years Saban could pull off the best coaching year of his career. And I mean, so far I would say 2020 is that one right now, because of the fact that you went up. He went 10-0 against 10 SEC teams. I think that's. I mean, even though they were in front of no fans, it was 10-0 against 10 SEC teams, which is quite possibly one of the best years you could have. So I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. I agree with that. So, talk a little bit about Mississippi this year. They have 3 really good quality quarterbacks. Somehow or another, Kiffin convinced 2 have-been starters to transfer to Ole Miss when they already had Jackson Dart, who transferred last year.
Right.
And so now they have Spencer Sanders, who is the second winningest starter in the Cowboys' history.
Right.
Has over 9,500 yards of throwing and 67 touchdowns in his career. And he has 1 year left of eligibility, and he transfers to Ole Miss when Kiffin has Jackson Dart. And then on top of that, Walker Howard transfers from LSU, who has had some starts at LSU.
Right.
Not a ton, but has had some starts at LSU. And he transfers in there as well. So he has 3 really good quality quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And I think he has possibly the best back in the nation.
Yes.
Sean Judkins, a true freshman last year. And by the way, I want to throw this out. He rushed for over 1,000 yards as a freshman, and he was the first back to do it since Emmitt Smith in 1987.
Yep. That checks out. Auburn's had backs that were close, but never quite clips the 1,000 yards as true freshman.
He's the true freshman back.
And Alabama
rush for
usually
over 1,000 yards in the SEC.
Alabama doesn't usually have any backs that runs over 1,000 as freshmen, because they usually don't get on the field until they're sophomores, juniors, or seniors. So at least not enough to be like the workhorse. They're not the workhorse guy. So,
and I want to
Auburn,
go
I think,
beyond that. Just actually rushed for over 1,500 yards last year as a true freshman. And no freshman has done it since 87, as a true freshman.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that he has a good chance. I know that Blake, what's his last name? It's up at Michigan, is back.
Yeah.
The running back.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
hurt
about.
And missed. Blake Corum.
Yes, Corum.
I think his name is Blake Corum.
Yeah.
Back. But I think Judkins can give him a run for his money to be the best back in the country. I really do.
Yeah.
Look for Ole Miss's offense to be pretty spectacular. Offense. It's going to come down to defense more than likely.
Right. So,
yeah.
but they also, and then and also the philosophy of going, as far as going by the numbers and everything like that, almost trying to figure out whether or not to go for it on fourth down. What the book says as far as going for it on fourth down. You have to see what kind of offense Lane will do and how well he'll stick to the book. So
right, this is true. Yeah, he is a little eccentric. He likes to do things his own way.
Right, but I mean, look, they have a talented offensive team, and now it's just, again, as you said, and as everybody else has thought, comes down to the defense and how much it's improved, or if it has improved. And if he doesn't have a defense, he's not going to win a ton of games. He'll win some just by outscoring teams, but he will not, get close to winning a championship with no defense. So he'll have to have a defense in order to even, be in the hunt for the SEC West title. So, but he might be able to keep teams. He might be able to keep teams from it. By beating them.
Where do you
and
think
knocking
Mississippi
them out.
falls in the SEC West?
So the consensus thought is that LSU and Alabama are going to be the top two teams in the West. All right, and then at the next level would be, basically, either kind of
A&M.
Well, it would be A&M, Ole Miss, and Arkansas are kind of the next three. Okay, they're the middle three. Okay, yeah. And then the bottom two would be Mississippi State and Auburn. Is what the kind of the ranking. So you'll have the top two being Alabama and LSU, the middle three being A&M, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. And again, the order of this is up in the air, but those would be the middle three, and then the bottom two would be Mississippi State and Auburn. That's how everybody views this.
That's the way most people are viewing it. That I've seen so far. I think Mississippi State is a smidge better than what they're getting credit for.
Honestly, it comes down to if they're going to run
defense back.
Right.
And
but I mean,
they have,
it kind of depends on how their offense will work.
Probably their best quarterback that they've ever had, and that includes Dak.
I know, but again, it also kind of hinges on the offense as well, which I don't know if it's going to be an air raid. So, you may have to rely on some running backs, which you may or may not have. You may rely on being able to run the ball, which you may or may not be able to do.
Well, they probably don't have too many running backs because the air raid didn't,
what I'm talking about.
Great ones, Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then
that's what I said. Yeah. I tend to think that Mississippi State is just a smidge better than what the expectations are.
Okay.
So could Mississippi State crash that fourth or fifth, range in the SEC West?
Possibly, but
I think there's a small chance of it.
Right.
I think there's a small chance of it. Probably. I don't think they would go any higher than that. Yeah. But Ole Miss could possibly nab the third spot in the SEC West if they play.
They could. Right. Yeah, they could. I don't put a whole lot of. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
If any of those three teams that I named in the middle three, any one of them could be number three, but every one of them could also be 5 in the West. Every one of them could be. They could be up. They could be 3.
Right.
They could be 5, or they could be 7. Not really 7, but more like 6. They could be 6.
I was trying to look at the schedule. They put Tulane the second game of the year
at New Orleans. It's in New Orleans, that game. So and then they could be a team that's like a 5-7. They could also be a 8-4 team. I don't know if they're going to be a 9 or a 10 win team. I think they're kind of in that 5-7 to 8-4 range. Right. And then, but I mean, they still have to play Bama, LSU. They still got to play Auburn, which you don't know what Auburn you're going to get. You have no idea. I mean, you think that Ole Miss should beat Auburn, but I don't know. They could. Auburn could come up and beat them. Mississippi State could show up for one game and beat Ole Miss. Not that I expect them to, but they could. Yeah, but like I said, I mean, every team could beat Ole Miss, and Ole Miss could, snake bit any team that's out there. But I just don't think they could put it up for an entire season. So I think they could beat somebody they're not supposed to, and then they could also lose to somebody they're not supposed to. I agree with that. And I think that's kind of the same thing for almost everybody in the West. I mean, it really is a toss it up in the air, because I could see LSU even losing a game they're not supposed to lose. Now, there's not too many teams that they could beat that they're not supposed to beat. I mean, because they're supposed to beat just about everybody. So, but they could lose a game that they're not supposed to. Alabama could lose a game they're not supposed to. I mean, Absolutely. Who knows what Texas A&M is gonna do? And then the other teams are more like they could win a game they're not supposed to. So as opposed to losing a game they're not supposed to. So I think that's just kind of just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, all of that can happen for sure.
Yep. So, but yeah. But what we got next? Who's next? Yeah, I got it.
What is the deal?
There we go. Cool. Yeah. So South Carolina.
All right. So I'm going to go on to South Carolina. I'm having a little bit of issue right now, it looks like. So
South Carolina just depends on if they actually take the next step.
Is it?
Right? They could take the next step. Cool.
Really. Shane Beamer has a pretty out there personality as well. Kind of like not quite as much as Lane Kiffin, but pretty close. And, he takes the podium today. He did bring his quarterback, Spencer Rattler. And, all right. So you got it out?
Yeah, I got to hit. I got to move. Yep.
All right, man.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. See you.
All right, so it looks like we're going to lose John, and I'll try to keep this going a little bit here, and going to go on into South Carolina, And South Carolina finished the year really strong, pounding Tennessee, putting up 63 points, and then beating Clemson at the last moment, basically, and beating them, coming back, beating them by one, and finishing up the season really, really strong. They also beat Kentucky, and first time ever beating Texas A&M last year. They went 8-5, and like I said, finished the season strong. Shane Beamer has one of those could rub you the wrong way personalities, really out there, boasters. He boasts, and stuff, and being boastful. So he takes the podium today, and the biggest thing that you can take from South Carolina this year is kind of what John said before he left the show. Is South Carolina's hoping to continue that late season success from last year and to take it into this year and turn it into a heck of a season is what they're hoping to do. Whether or not they can do that is a pretty good debate. Spencer Rattler was there today at SEC Media Days. And, Spencer, of course, is saying all the right things and talking about how his struggles that he has had in his career is what is making him be even better now. And Spencer was, talking and saying all the right things. The deal is this: which Spencer Rattler are we going to see at South Carolina? Are we going to see the one that started the first 7 or 8 games last year and basically looked terrible? I'm not even going to put it out there any other way. He had way more interceptions than he had touchdowns, and just looked pretty terrible for 7 or 8 games last year. And then put it all together at the very end. He did lose the OC. They bringing in a guy that's been controversial, Dow, and they brought him in, and we'll see exactly controversial with the fan base, their own fan base. But he has been an OC or a quarterback coach for Jay Cutler, Connor Shaw, and some pretty good quarterbacks. Jay Cutler gave the guy a good recommendation, basically, and said he's the best. I had my best season in Chicago under him when he was my quarterback coach. So we'll see what happens with South Carolina here. They play a tough schedule. All the SEC teams do. And I think early on, week 2, 3, 4, we'll find out exactly what kind of how South Carolina is going to look and what kind of season Spencer Rattler is going to have. I mean, not to say that he can't come on at the end like he did last year and, after 6 games or whatever, and come on and play like a world beater, because he can. He did it last year and he showed that he can. So, that's where South Carolina is at. I don't believe, while they do have some players and stars on the defensive side of the ball, and they put it together last year and done pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. So, I expect to see some more improvement in that area for South Carolina on the defensive side of the ball as well. But we will, we'll find out when it comes to South Carolina, I think most of the eggs are in the Spencer Rattler basket, if you want my opinion. When it comes to them, they are in that fringe top 25 range. I have seen them in some polls be top 25 and some not. I also have seen them as high as second or third in the SEC West, and I've seen them as low as fourth or fifth in the SEC East. Sorry, I said West. But I've also seen them as low as fourth or fifth in the SEC East as well. So they're a team that is kind of imbalanced with people's predictions. And I tend to believe that South Carolina is going to lean a little bit more towards their first 8 or 9 games last year, which wasn't terrible. They were still, they were still like 5-4 or something in the first 9 games. But they wasn't beating the likes of Tennessee, who was number 1 at the time, 8-0, and Clemson. They wasn't beating the likes of those types teams last year. And we'll see exactly how that plays out and what happens with South Carolina this year. And I think a whole lot of it is going to stem from the offensive coordinator that they brought in and Spencer Rattler, and how that offense looks, how it plays, how quick they play, because they played lightning quick last year. They put up 63 points against Tennessee and beat them like 63-39. I'm pretty sure was the score in that game last year. And we will see how that plays out, because, I think that's what Spencer Rattler, that's his MO. That's what he likes to do. I think he likes to play fast. And he can do a good job at that if that's how the offense is designed and that's how the offense is going to be set up. I think it bodes well for Spencer Rattler, which will bode well for South Carolina if that's the way it's set up. They play North Carolina the first game of the year. North Carolina has got a great quarterback as well. And it is at South Carolina. Then they turn around and they play Furman. Furman is a top 5 or top 10 FCS team. And they're not going to be a cakewalk, I don't believe. They have quality players. Furman's going to be a quality team for FCS, and we'll see how that goes. And, of course, their third game of the year is against Georgia. So we'll find out pretty quickly, and it's at Georgia as well. I tend to think that South Carolina will be in that 4th range in the SEC East. But we'll see what happens. And then from there, Tennessee takes the stage, and Josh Heupel takes the stage and to finish up and to end SEC Media Days. They are the 14th and last team today to take the stage at SEC Media Days in Nashville, Tennessee, by the way. And Tennessee coming off an 11-2 year last year, and outside of that slip up with South Carolina, Tennessee is probably in the college football playoff last year. If it wasn't for that loss, if they would have taken care of business that day, their only loss would have been I don't think would have been enough to keep them out, which was a loss to Georgia, would have been enough to keep them out of the college football playoff last year. And I said something wrong earlier. I think the Georgia game was before the South Carolina game last year. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, Tennessee would have had one loss against South Carolina, and that would have been the second. I just wanted to clarify when I started bringing this up. It reminded me that I said something wrong a while ago. But Josh Heupel takes the stage, and unfortunately for Josh, there was a lot of questions and a lot of buzz in the room today about the sanctions that was put on Tennessee this week, early this week. Maybe over the weekend. Maybe it was Saturday, maybe it was Sunday, but it was within the last week. These sanctions were released. Now, I want to get into these sanctions just a little bit. There is a lot of talk between football fans that Tennessee got off easy. These sanctions violations happened 2.5+ years ago under a different coaching regime, different players. And I think the NCAA is getting away from punishing current players and current teams as much as possible. They are losing some, they are still having some scholarship reductions with this. They are on 5 years probation. So we'll see if that actually means something down the road if something was to happen again. And they did avoid a postseason ban, which Tennessee was adamantly trying to do. So they were trying their best to avoid the postseason ban, and they did. However, what I want to get to is this. There was a heavy opponent to these sanctions, and that heavy opponent was these sanctions were heavy towards the actual coaches and staff that committed these violations. And there were 18 that were the top of the line violations. And there was a lot. And so the coaches themselves took a heavy hit. Jeremy Pruitt, who was the head coach at Tennessee when all this happened, got a 6-year show cause. 6 years. One of the directors of player or something, one of them got a 10-year show cause on this. There was 3 assistant coaches. 2 of them got 5 years. One of them got a 2-year show cause. There were staff members who got 5 years, 2 years. And then there was a player of director of personnel or player or something. I can't remember now exactly what the title was, but he got a 10-year show cause. There was, beyond Jeremy Pruitt, I believe there were 7 coaches and staff members who got show causes. And these show causes keep you from being able to recruit, to coach. The teams that might hire you get penalties. So on Jeremy Pruitt's, if anybody hires him, he automatically gets a 1-year ban. Automatically. Then they have to reinstate and apply for Jeremy to be able to do anything after that. And the likelihood that he is going to be able to do any coaching whatsoever for the next 6 years is slim to none. And I want to put that out there. There was a heavy opponent to these sanctions, and it was actually on the people who committed the violations and not put on the school or the players that had nothing to do with it. There's a part of me that's okay with that, and I'm a Kentucky fan. There's a part of me that says, maybe there should have been at least one more heavier component for the team. I'm not exactly sure what that would be, but, maybe, a little bit heavier penalty for scholarship reductions and visits and, things of that nature. But I just wanted to put it out there. These Tennessee sanctions, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about how it just was a slap on the wrist and it wasn't enough and everything else. And if you're looking at the team aspect of it, they did get off kind of easy for having major violations. There were 18 of them. But the staff who committed these violations definitely got a heavy hand. So there is that part, and I wanted to make sure that I bring that up because I think it's relevant to the story. Sorry, I'm looking something up real quick. All right. Let's get to today and today's team. So Tennessee players were not bashful about saying they are coming after Georgia. They had a great season last year. They won 11-2. And they were not bashful about saying they were coming after Georgia. Joe Milton, the presumed quarterback that's going to be starting, taking over as the starter this year, was one of the players that were pretty bold when it comes to this. And I just wanted to mention that. My take on Tennessee is this. I think they lost a lot offensively. Losing Hendon Hooker. I know that Joe Milton has an absolute cannon of an arm. I know that he does. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that I know that he has a cannon of an arm. I don't know that that relates quite so well on the football field with some touch throws and stuff that you have to do. And I tend to think that early in the season that we might see Milton struggle just a little bit. And if he does, there is a 5-star freshman that is waiting for his turn. Will he get a shot this year? Will Milton struggle enough early in the season with some touch throws and some, 10 yards outs and curls and things that, is not just dropping back and throwing a bomb, So I think that with that and replacing the receivers that this team lost, all in the NFL, 3 of them, is a lot. Hyatt was spectacular last year. I just don't see that you're going to have a guy that's going to have a year like Hyatt did last year. Maybe they do. Maybe they have somebody setting that was setting last year that's that good. Maybe they do, and maybe I'll be wrong. But I tend to think that the two teams that I've talked about tonight, South Carolina and Tennessee, the way South Carolina ended and Tennessee's full season last year, I tend to think that you're going to see a game or two slide back. That's my take on it. Now, will that be enough to knock them out of the second and third spot in the SEC East? I don't know. Kentucky has a tough schedule, and in my opinion, Kentucky is the only other team that would be in that second, third, and fourth spot. I think those three teams are going to be in that second, third, and fourth spot. But Kentucky plays Tennessee at home, Georgia at home, Tennessee at home, Georgia on the road, Alabama at home. They have Mississippi State and South Carolina on the road. And, with all of these teams, Kentucky has a pretty tough schedule, and I think an 8-4 season with them would be a great season. And I'm not so sure that an 8-4 season will be enough to get them second place in the SEC East. So Tennessee might have that second place in the SEC East, but I don't think it will be 11-2 like they were last year. I think if Tennessee goes 10-3 this year or 9-3 in the regular season, I think that'll be a great year, and I think that possibly could be second place in the SEC East. That's what I think. So looking at Tennessee's football schedule, I will kind of get to – so their first game of the year, they play Virginia at Tennessee. Then they play Austin Peay, and then they play at Florida. So, we're going to find out. Virginia is not the Virginia of old. I really don't expect Virginia to come into Neyland Stadium and to give them a huge challenge, but it is the first game of the year, so we'll see how that goes. And Florida is, in my opinion, a little bit undermanned compared to what they always have been. And always, I mean, since the late 80s. And, I don't think Florida's quite there yet, but Florida and Tennessee is a huge rivalry. And you just never know how that game is going to turn out. Plus, it's at the Swamp. So you have to give Florida a little bit of an edge because it's at the Swamp. So, now, does that mean I'm saying that Tennessee won't win that game? No, I'm just saying I think it'll be a tougher game than what most people are going to predict. And Tennessee might win, 37-27 or something like that. I think it'll be a little tougher game than what they think the game will be when it comes to the Florida game. That's my on it. That's their first 3 games of the year, and that's how their season starts. And we'll see exactly how they go from there because, I see 3 wins when it comes to the first 3 games of the year. I don't see that they are going to lose a game like that. Then the 4th game of the year is actually a very interesting game. UTSA comes to Neyland Stadium, and they've got a team. and can score points. And that's going to be a very interesting game. And then they play at home against South Carolina. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of their first 6 games are at home. They play home Virginia, home Austin Peay, at Florida, home UTSA, home South Carolina, and home Texas A&M. 5 of their first 6 games are at home. Then they play at Alabama, at Kentucky. They play UConn, who is going to be a lot better of a program than people give them credit for. Jim Moore Jr. is up there and is really turning that program around. At Missouri, Georgia, and Vandy at home. So they have 8 home games this year. I still say I think 9-3 is going to be a good season for them. I don't think that's what Tennessee fans want to hear. But and I'm going to dig into their schedule and look at other teams as well a little bit later on. But that's where I'm at right now with them. And we'll see exactly how it goes. One of the last things I want to bring up tonight is, as far as any of this, I opened the show talking about Lane Kiffin and his NIL and transfer portal, the way he was talking today. So I wanted to the last topic that I want to bring up is NIL legislation. There was actually a bill by some senators that was on the floor this morning early, that they're hoping that will get a little bit of traction. This bill is actually very, very has a lot of different parts to this bill, including health care for the players. Like, there is a lot of moving parts on this bill, but I think it's worth mentioning. And if you are interested in any of this kind of stuff, you can go to ESPN app, ESPN.com. There is a story on this on ESPN right now, and it goes into some depth and some detail on this legislation bill. There's actually 3 different bills right now that are being introduced. This one seems to have the most traction, and don't know if it'll get actually on the floor and get voted on or not. But it was introduced today on the floor early this morning before Lane Kiffin took the stage at SEC Media Days. But Kiffin probably didn't know that. So it is a bipartisan deal. It's both sides of the party, the 3 people that are working, that have put this together. It is a bipartisan deal and everything, which is exactly what is needed. And there are a lot of moving parts to this bill. And I just wanted to bring it up tonight before I got off the air, because I'm taking another little break. We won't be back until August the 5th or August the 1st. I'm sorry. I can't talk right, apparently. But August the 1st is going to be our next show. It's July. We're taking a little bit of time off. And I done this summer series week with Global Jam on Sunday night, and we did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night here covering SEC Media Days. And now our next thing that we have coming up each Tuesday night in August, beginning August 1st, we're going to be doing our Power 5 previews and prediction shows. So each Tuesday, we're going to be doing a different Power 5 conference. August 1st is going to be the Pac-12. August 8th is going to be the Big Ten. August 15th is going to be the ACC. August 22nd is the Big 12. And August 29th is going to be the SEC. And we will cover and break down each team and give some analysis. We will break down their schedule, and we will give a 12-game regular season prediction for each team. And I probably will do a breakdown of what position everybody will land at in the conference, whether it be East and West for the SEC or Big 12 or Pac-12, and do an order of finish in each conference as well with that. But that is going to be pretty exciting. We've got some new stuff coming up. I've got some new shows. Got one called the Big Fuss Show. That's our hot topic and segment show. We are hoping to be able to bring a female to that show and have a little contrast with you guys and on hot topics and debates and things like that. I think that's going to be a fun thing for us. Where Jen is who we're going to be bringing on board on Tuesday nights for the Big Fuss Show, College SportsCast, the Big Fuss Show. And that's going to start late August. I think August 29th, if I'm recalling right. That will be our first Big Fuss Show. It's a renamed show. We done like news and hot topics and segments show last year. But we are doing kind of a revamp of that show. It's called the Big Fuss Show. And we are going to be adding a female presence to the show. So you can look forward to that. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is August 27th with the Fanboys. We are doing a kickoff extravaganza marathon with all of us, the Fanboys. And it's going to be over 15, 16 podcasts, maybe even a few more than that by the time we are done. We have added one or two since I put this up. But some of the teams we're going to cover is Notre Dame, Clemson, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina State, Tennessee. We're going to have a cast. We're going to have a fun podcast. There'll be a couple of wrestling shows. We're going to have one for our Greenville sports media. We'll have, we'll have quite a few different shows for you guys, and we're going to cover different teams, and a lot of teams there is listed. So I hope you guys will be excited for our August 27th, the Fanboys Season 2 kickoff marathon. It is going to be sponsored by Pepsi, guys. We're going to be having some giveaways. The first 2.5 hours is going to be live on location in Greenville, South Carolina, at Arden's Burger and Grill. And we're going to be doing some live giveaways. I probably will have a giveaway or two as well to end. College SportsCast is going to anchor the show and be the last show. It's going to begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's a Sunday, August 27th. And we're going to run till 7 or 8 o'clock. I know we'll run to at least 7. And College SportsCast will be the last hour of the marathon. And in between, we'll have preseason show on Notre Dame and Clemson and Texas and Georgia and North Carolina State and Tennessee. And so It's going to be a fun show. You can catch it on the Fanboys YouTube for the beginning of the show. Everything will be on the first 2.5 hours. Everything will be on the Fanboys YouTube. And then each show will click in and we will show you exactly how to continue with the marathon. But we're excited about it. We have Amazon as Amazon associate sponsorship now, and we have Pepsi for that marathon. They are on board for our marathon, our kickoff marathon. We will have Pepsi as a sponsor. Will be a sponsor for us as well for the Fanboys Season 2 kickoff show. So we're excited to be able to bring that to you. And like I said, August 27th, 11 to at least 7 p.m., 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we will have at least 15, 16 different podcasts for you throughout the day, and different teams, different coverages. Like I said, there'll be a couple of wrestling shows. We're going to have a betting show on for you. UB Smart Betting is going to be here and be a part of this. So join us with the Fanboys, and we are going to have a grand time and giveaways for our Season 2 kickoff for football. I mean, come on, guys and gals, it's football. So let's come on board and join us for our Season 2 kickoff, and we'll have a blast. And with that, I'm going to bid you farewell. I will see you August for our Pac-12 preview and prediction show. We will break down team by team analysis, schedule, and records for all 12 Pac-12 teams and break them down for you and give you a record prediction for the regular season. We will see you August the 1st. Y'all have a good vacation.